Hi everyone, it's the top of the hour and welcome to this, our seventh in a series of webinars on performance management, looking at how do we go about inspiring people rather than as many of the corporate governance style performance management processes do, which is infuriate people. Just a quick recap for those of you who didn't join us for our earlier webinars. And by the way, welcome to everyone, but particularly warm welcome to our new attendees. In our first webinar, we explained the fact that whether or not we design them, all performance management processes have 7 components. And if we don't design these, employees and managers alike actually fill in the gaps. So we identified that the first of the Cogs is setting direction. This is where we share our vision, our mission, our strategy, and our values. We explain why the company exists, why the different jobs exist, why are we here? And again, if we don't explain that and repeatedly remind people, they fill in their own decisions. And this is why very often employees do things which we think are crazy because their values and their priorities are different. We then looked at clarifying roles. We explained that actually in an organization, the clearer the definition of the role is, the more likely we are to have people fulfilling them. That actually a good job description can even create a fabulous agenda for a performance discussion. In the third cog, we looked at planning and aligning. How do we plan and align performance? And it's not just about setting 3 or 4 objectives for the year. It's agreeing the standards. What standard do we expect? What do we expect the output to be? How do we want people to go about their role? And in a constantly changing world, what development do we want them to achieve in order to meet existing and future expectations? And then we talked about monitoring and measuring. Most managers really struggle with the performance appraisals at the end of a period, not because the process is wrong, but because they haven't been monitoring and accumulating evidence during the year. And of course, with more and more people working remotely, understanding how they're going about their work, what their current level of personal development is increasingly challenging. So in that one, we looked at how you go about monitoring and measuring performance. And then enabling and enhancing. It's the piece that's frequently missed in most performance management processes. How do we trigger the desired behaviors? How do we enable? How do we encourage and inspire employees? And this is through having frequent conversations, giving feedback on the time, giving feedback clearly, and also making sure we tap into personal motivations. We can't motivate people, but what we can do is to stop demotivating them. We can unlock their inherent motivation. And today we're going to be looking at assessing and evaluating performance and seeing what the difference between those two is. And then our next webinar, we'll look at rewarding and recognizing. And as I said, whether or not we design those elements, they exist in every organization. So we said, what is a performance management process overall? And really, it's a combination of processes that ensure that we achieve what we want from our employees, that it's done how we'd like it to be done, and that we develop the strength and the benchmarks within the organization itself. What we're looking for is desired results, positive reputation, and enhanced capability. And what we know is that from research, and it's increasingly the case as people work more remotely, what they're looking for is clarity, they're looking for assurance, they're looking for recognition, and they're looking for empathy. And what we know is that those 7 cogs, if designed and implemented well, help us to ensure those 4 things. You will be getting access to a recording of this webinar, but here's a quick screenshot. You can just capture that. That gives you access to a variety of materials complementary to the webinar, some free materials for you to download. So let's now look at assessing and evaluating. This is the cog we're focusing on today. And as we've said, what we're looking at is how do we assess and evaluate what people have produced? And of course, depending on your level in the organization, your seniority, your competence, the role that you have, that what may be the vast majority of the expectations of you. But in many jobs, how you go about it is significantly important. And in one of the webinars, we talked about the difference between obviously the head of the organization, where results is of paramount importance, and the receptionist, where how they go about their job is of paramount importance. And then, of course, for a lot of people, their growth can be a critical issue. So if we have people working in cybersecurity, if we have people researching the application of artificial intelligence in our organization, their personal development may be the most critical factor in their performance if they're going to have the impact on the business that we want. And what we talked about in the measuring and monitoring and measuring webinar, measures can obviously be quantitative, but they can also be qualitative. But also, if you define for me the quantity of output you want me to produce and the quality you want me to produce, unless we have some discussion around what level of resources can I use and how much time can I spend achieving those things, we still don't have a good monitor and measure of my performance. And of course, many of those things don't always have discrete measures applicable to them. Various components of performance can have a standard, what we aim at, and typically SMART objectives, they have this single standard. What we want you to achieve is X. But of course, what we know is that in certain things, actually going above that can be a problem. So if, for example, we have someone selling products for us and they have a range of products to sell, if they prefer selling one item from the range, they may end up selling sufficient that it starts to become a problem and has an adverse effect on production, distribution, warehousing, etc.